Welcome to another video of my channel, and today we're going to be reading chapter number 13. As you know, we already tackled chapter 12 in this marvelous story of the giver, and today we're continuing with that situation, so please get relaxed and enjoy what we're having today. And the most important thing, follow the sequence of what we're gonna say. If you remember here in this previous chapter 12 that we had here in the channel, I'm leaving here the video so you can watch it. We got Jonas in a situation where he obtained some memories. Well, using these memories, he could appreciate more than what his eyes could see, like colors, like other situations related to that. Well, right now we're gonna explore more what he has to show during this approximation with the giver. Well, if you enjoy audiobooks, continue with this one, and I hope you enjoy it. Well, stay tuned and let's go to the reading. And if you booked this moment for you, enjoy it. Well, here we are with chapter 13. Let's continue reading it, and I hope you enjoy it. Well, it says in the first lines, days went by and weeks. Jonas learned through the memories as we were talking. The names of colors. I remember here in this part that in the previous chapter he was checking this color red from an apple, right? Do you remember? And now he began to see them all in his ordinary life, though he knew it was ordinary no longer and would never be again. But they didn't last. There would be a glimpse of green, the landscape alone around the central plaza, a bush on the riverbank, the bright orange of pumpkins being trucked in front of the agricultural fields beyond the community boundary. Seen in an instant, the flash of brilliant color, but gone again, returning to their flat and hueless shade. The giver told him that it would be a very long time before he had the colors to keep. But I want them, Jonas said angrily. It isn't fair that nothing has color. Not fair? The giver looked at Jonas curiously. Explain what you mean. Well, Jonas had to stop and think it through. If everything is the same, then there aren't any choices. I want to wake up in the morning and decide things. A blue tunic or a red one. He looked down at himself, at the colorless fabric of his clothing, but it's all the same always. Imagine that situation, having all the same colors in your closet and in your life. It was like black and white or gray or scales of gray, kind of boring, right? Well, here Jonas noticed that his life could be colorful and fulfilled with other emotions as well. So it says, then he laughed a little. I know it's not important what you wear, but it doesn't matter, but it's the choosing that's important, isn't it? The giver asked him. Jonas nodded. My little brother, he began, and then corrected himself. No, that's inaccurate. He's not my brother, not really, but this new child that my family takes care of, his name is Gabriel. Yes, I know about Gabriel. Well, he's right at the age where he's learning so much. He grabs toys when he holds them in front of him. My father says he's learning a small muscle control and he's really cute. The giver nodded. But now that I can see colors, at least sometimes, I was just thinking, what if we could hold up things that we were bright red and then bright yellow and he could choose? Instead of the sameness. He might make wrong choices. Oh, Jonas was silent for a minute. Oh, I see what you mean. It wouldn't matter for a new child's toy. But later it does matter, doesn't it? We don't care to let people make choices of their own. Not safe, the giver suggested. Definitely not safe. Jonas said with certainty. What if they were allowed to choose their own mate and choose wrong? And what if, he went on, almost laughing at the absurdity, they chose their own jobs? Frightening, isn't it? The giver said. Jonas chuckled. Very frightening. I can't even imagine it. We really have to protect people from wrong choices. It's safer. Yes, Jonas agreed. Much safer. But when the conversation turned to the other things, Jonas was left still with a feeling of frustration that he didn't understand. Well, keep in mind that this is a really controlled society and everything is taken by them. Well, decisions, choices, everything. So they don't have to take care about almost any aspect of transcendental decisions. So he's confused in this point. Well, he found that he was often angry, now irrationally angry at his groupmates, that they were satisfied with their lives which had none of the vibrance his own was taking on. And he was angry at himself, that he could not change that for them. He tried, without asking permission from the giver, because he feared or knew what it would be the night he tried to give his new awareness to his friends. Asher, Jonas said one morning. Remember Asher? It was Jonas's friend, right? So he said, look at those flowers very carefully. They were standing beside a bed of geraniums planted near the hall of open records. He put his hands on Asher's shoulders and concentrated on the red of the petals, trying to hold it as long as he could, and trying at the same time to transmit the awareness of red to his friend. What's the matter? Asher asked uneasily. So he was like, oh, come on, you're putting your hand on my shoulder. What do you want? What is this about? Well, is something wrong? He moved away from Jonas' hands. It was extremely rude for one citizen to touch another outside of family units. Yes, imagine. They are like this kind of units where everything is like forbidden and really uncertain, really prohibited. So touching means a risky action. So no, nothing. I thought for a minute that they were wilting, and we should let the garden crew know that they need more watering. Jonas sighed and turned away. One evening he came home with his training weighted with new knowledge. The giver had chosen a startling and disturbing memory that day. Here it comes, the hard moments. Under the touch of his hands, Jonas had found himself suddenly in a place that was completely alien, hot and windswept, under a vast blue sky. There were tufts of sparse grass, a few bushes and rocks, and nearby he could see an area of thicker vegetation. Broad, low trees outlined against the sky. He could hear noises, the sharp crack of weapons. He perceived the words guns, and then shouts and an immense crashing thud as something fell, tearing branches from the trees. What could that be? Maybe the war, the constant war, right? He heard voices calling to one another, peering from the place where he stood hidden behind the shrubbery. He was reminded of what the giver had told him. There had been a time when flesh had different colors. That was a hard concept. Flesh had different colors. Two of these men had dark brown skin, the others were light. Going closer, he watched them hack the tusks from a motionless elephant on the ground and held them away, spattered with blood. He felt himself overwhelmed with a new perception of the color he knew as red. Then the men were gone, speeding toward the horizon in a vehicle that spit pebbles from its whirling tires. One hit his forehead and stung him there, but the memory continued. Through though Jonas ached now for it to end. Now he saw another elephant emerge from the place where it had stood hidden in the trees. Very slowly it walked to the mutilated body and looked down. With its sinuous trunk, it stroked the huge corpse. Then it reached up, broke some leafy branches with a snap, and dipped them over the mass of torn thick flesh. Finally, it tilted its massive head, raised its trunk, and roared into the empty landscape. Jonas had never heard such a sound. It was a sound of rage and grief, and it seemed never to end. He could still hear it he could still hear it when he opened his eyes and lay anguished on the bed where he received the memories. He continued to roar into his consciousness as he pedaled slowly home. "Lily," he asked that evening when his sister took her comfort object, the stuffed elephant from the shelf, "did you know that once there really were elephants? Live ones?" She glanced down at the racked comfort object and grinned. "Right," she said skeptically. "Sure, Jonas." So here, imagine that these people, especially the young ones, never saw an animal in their lives. They were just like theories, and they belong to a moment in the past of humans that it was like a myth at that time. So imagine that situation, kind of weird, right? So here we may see that this concept of elephants, this concept of different animals, was just something unexpected, something that they could have never thought it could happen, or if they could see them live. So here, let's continue. Jonas went and sat beside them while his father untied Lily's hair ribbons and combed her hair. He placed one hand on each of their shoulders. With all of his being, he tried to give each of them a piece of the memory. Not of the tortured cry of the elephant, but of the being of the elephant. Of the towering, immense creature and the meticulous touch with which it had tended its friend at the end. But his father had continued to comb Lily's long hair, and Lily, impatient, had finally wiggled under her brother's touch. "Jonas," he said, "you're hurting me with your hand." "I apologize for hurting you, Lily," Jonas mumbled, and took his hand away. "I accept your apology," Lily responded indifferently, stroking the lifeless elephant. "Giver," Jonas asked once, as they prepared for the day's work, "don't you have a spouse? Aren't you allowed to apply for one?" This concept is really interesting too. They also decide your partner for life. So in this situation, all the people there had a partner, a spouse, a wife or husband, as you want to call it. That person is assigned by the elders. You may ask for one, and they assigned that person for you according to your interest, your likes, and so on, many other situations. But always considering like this, a program, a goal, a situation to follow. Kind of interesting, this concept. Well, imagine this is a utopic society that avoids war and all forms of conflict. So there it is. Although he was exempted from these rules against rudeness, he was aware that this was a rude question, that the giver had encouraged all of his questions, not seeming to be embarrassed or offended by even the most personal. The giver chuckled. "No, there's no rule against it. And I did have a spouse. You're forgetting how old I am, Jonas? My former spouse lives now with the childless adults." Of course, Jonas had forgotten the giver's obvious age. When adults of the community became older, their lives became different. They were no longer needed to create a family units. Jonas' own parents, when he and Lily were grown, would go to live with the childless adults. You will be able to apply for a spouse, Jonas, if you want to. I'll warn you, though, that it will be difficult. Your living arrangements will have to be different from those of most family units. Because the books are forbidden to citizens, you and I are the only ones with access to the books. So here, another time of an interesting situation and concept where accessing to the books is forbidden for every citizen. So here the question: the knowledge is also forbidden, so they cannot open their eyes and know situations or other facts about the world, but the humankind, well, it seems they cannot. Jonas glanced around at the astonishing array of volumes. From time to time now, he could see their colors, with their hours together, his and the giver's, consumed by the conversation and by the transmission of memories. Jonas had not yet opened any of the books, but he read the titles here and there, and knew that they contained all of the knowledge of centuries, and that one day they would belong to him. So if I have a spouse and maybe children, I will have to hide the books from them? The giver nodded. I wasn't permitted to share the books with my spouse. That's correct. And there are other difficulties too. You remember the rule that says the new receiver can't talk about his training? Jonas nodded. Of course, he remembered. It had turned out by far to be the most frustrating of the rules he was required to obey. When you become the official receiver, when we're finished here, you will be given a whole new set of rules. Those are the rules that I obey, and it won't surprise you that I am forbidden to talk about my work to anyone except the new receiver. That's you, of course. So, there will be a whole part of your life which you won't be able to share with your family. It's hard, Jonas. It was hard for me too. You do understand, don't you, that this is my life, the memories. Jonas nodded again, but he was puzzled. Here, this concept of puzzled is like confused and, well, like tricked by the concepts and the situations. Didn't life consist of the things you did each day? There wasn't anything else, really? I've seen you taking walks, he said. The giver sighed. I walk. I eat at mealtime, and when I am called by the committee of elders, I appear before them to give them counsel and advice. Do you advise them often? Jonas was a little frightened at the thought that one day he would be the one to advise the ruling body. But the giver said no. Rarely. Only when they are faced with something that they have not experienced before. Then they call upon me to use the memories and advise them. But it very seldom happens. Sometimes I wish they'd ask for my wisdom more often. There are so many things I could tell them, things I wish they would change, but they don't want change. Life here is so orderly, so predictable, and so painless. It's what they've chosen. So here, again guys, this book is all over this situation where humans are like taken apart from pain and feelings and wars and odd situations and strong situations that today we suffer of. So here, when those facts and those variables are taken apart, you feel that what he says, well, it's like boring and predictable. They need me and you, the giver said, but didn't explain. They were reminded of that 10 years ago. What happened 10 years ago? Jonas asked. Oh, I know, you tried to train a successor and it failed. Why? Why did that remind him? The giver smiled grimly. When the new receiver failed, the memories that she had received were released. They didn't come back to me. They went. So he could not recover those memories again. He paused and seemed to be struggling with the concept. I don't know exactly. They went to the place where memories once existed before. Receivers were created. Someplace out there. He gestured vaguely with his arm. And then the people had access to them. Apparently that's the way it was. Once. Everyone had access to memories. It was a chaos, he said. They really suffered for a while. Finally, it subsided as the memories were assimilated, but it certainly made them aware of how they need a receiver to contain all that pain and knowledge. But you have to suffer like that all the time, Jonas pointed out. The giver nodded. And you will. It's my life. It will be yours. Jonas thought about what it would be like for him, along with walking and eating, and he looked around the walls of books. Reading? That's it? The giver shook his head. Those are simply the things that I do. My life is here, in this room. The giver shook his head. He put his hands on his own face to his chest. No, here, in my being, where the memories are. My instructors in science and technology have taught us about how the brain works. Jonas told him eagerly. It's full of electrical impulses. It's like a computer. If you simulate one part of the brain with an electrode, he stopped talking and could see an odd look on the giver's face. It was weird, of course. The explanation was not matching him. They'd know nothing, the giver said bitterly. Jonas was shocked. Since the first day in the annex room, they had together disregarded the rules about rudeness, and Jonas felt comfortable with that now. But this was different, and far beyond rude. This was a terrible accusation. What if someone had heard? He glanced quickly at the wall speaker, terrified that the committee might be listening as they could at any time, but as always during their sessions together, the switch should be turned to off. Nothing? Jonas whispered nervously. But my instructors. The giver flicked his hand as if brushing something aside. All your instructors are well trained. They know their scientific facts. Everyone is well trained for his job. It's just that, without the memories, it's so meaningless. They gave that burden to me, and to the previous receiver, and the one before him, and back and back and back. So Jonas said, knowing the phrase that always came. The giver smiled, though his smile was oddly harsh. That's right, and next it will be you, a great honor. Yes, sir. They told me that at the ceremony, the very highest honor. Some afternoons the giver sent him away without training. Jonas knew, on days when he arrived to find the giver hunched over, rocking his body slightly back and forth, his face pale, that he would be sent away. Go, the giver would tell him tensely. I'm in pain today, come back tomorrow. On those days, worried and disappointed, Jonas would walk alone beside the river. The paths were empty of people except for the few delivery crews and landscape workers here and there. The small children were all at the child care center after school, and the older ones busy with volunteer hours of training. By himself, he tested his own developing memory. He watched the landscape for glimpses of the green that he knew was embedded in the shrubbery. When it came flickering into his consciousness, he focused upon it, keeping it there, darkening it, holding it in his vision as long as possible until his head hurt and he let it fade away. So here, another fact. When the receiver, in this case Jonas, was like focusing and gathering all the skill, all the situation for the color viewing, then he felt like sick. So his head was like in pain in that moment. So on, right? Well, he stared at the flat, colorless sky, bringing blue from it. and remembered sunshine until finally, for an instant, he could feel warmth. He stood at the foot of the bridge that spanned the river. The bridge that citizens were allowed to cross only on official business. Jonas had crossed it on school trips, visiting the outlying communities, and he knew that the land beyond the bridge was much the same, flat and well-ordered with fields for agriculture. The other communities he had seen on visits were essentially the same as his own. The only differences were slightly altered styles of dwellings, slightly different schedules in the schools. He wondered what lay in the far distance where he had never gone. The land didn't end beyond those nearby communities. Were there hills elsewhere? Were there vast wind-torn areas like the place he had seen in the memory, the place where the elephant died? Giver, he asked one afternoon following a day when he had been sent away, what causes you pain? When the giver was silent, Jonas continued, the chief elder told me at the beginning that the receiving of memory causes terrible pain, and you described for me that the failure of the last new receiver released painful memories to the community. But I haven't suffered. Giver, not really. Jonas smiled. Oh, I remember the sunburn you gave me on the very first day, but that wasn't so terrible. What is that makes you suffer so much? If you gave some of it to me, maybe your pain would be less. The giver nodded. Lay down, he said. It's time. I suppose I can't shield you forever. You will have to take it all on eventually. Let me think, he went on, when Jonas was on the bed waiting a little fearful. All right, the giver said after a moment. I've decided. We'll start with something familiar. Let's go once again to a hill and a sled. He placed his hands on Jonas' back. Well, do you see, guys, that here in this chapter we are finishing with this phrase, and it seems that a memory will appear in the next chapter that will cause Jonas a certain painful situation, and we're gonna check what is that. Maybe something related to that moment in the hill when he saw snow and he was like on a sled and he felt that situation of adrenaline. Well, that could be, probably. So we're going to be checking what chapter 14 has to say. Here you have what it says. You may pause the video and read a little bit what here it says, or maybe you can just advance in the reading by yourself and you can come here after just to check what you have read. Well, from my side, I wish you the best of luck in your day, afternoon, or night whenever you're watching this video. I hope you liked it, and I hope you can come here later for checking more of my content. Don't forget that we're going to be uploading more content like this, finishing the last chapters of this book and starting with other titles like Harry Potter, Dracula that I have here, Lovecraft, and many other titles that are really, really good. There also will be some in English, some in Spanish. So if you are like an English speaker, just stay tuned so you can learn some Spanish from the books that are in Spanish too. And if you're a Spanish speaker, you can take these ones as a practice for enhancing your language skills. Well, with no more to say, thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon back in Book a Moment. So if you want Book a Moment for later to keep going on more videos like this. Bye bye.